Hey guys, welcome to Mr. Smith's Kitchen. Brian, Mr. Smith Kitchen, as always. And tonight, since you stopped by, we're gonna make some French onion chicken. Now, I did this recipe as a video way back years ago. Not a very good video. And some people may think this isn't a very good video, but that's alright, either way. And I wanted to revisit it. We've made some changes to it, sorta. But not a whole lot. Added a little more, a little more of the ingredients versus what the original recipe said, things we like. But that's alright. It's just a really good dish we haven't had in a long time, and I thought I'd share it with you guys. When I made that video, I don't think we had 45, 50 people in the neighborhood. Now we got a lot of people in the neighborhood. So, that being said, if you're new, first video, welcome, thank you. If you're returning or one of our new subscribers in the neighborhood, you know, which is steadily turning into a village, we've got over 3,000 subscribers, way beyond my expectations and goals for this year, and that's great. I hope we keep going. But thanks for coming back. Thank you for being a new subscriber. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell if you want to know when my videos come out. What are you doing, Ab? And that helps grow our neighborhood even more. Gets good word out, so to speak. If you are new, we're all about food. All aspects of food. Being a good neighbor through food. You know, making something, inviting people over. You know, keeping communication strong. I think we're lacking in that nowadays. We are definitely, sorry, I've got rice starting to simmer, and I'll turn that down as low as we can get it, throw a lid on it. But, you know, communicating through food, you know, inviting a neighbor over, inviting friends over, hanging out. We are definitely lacking in that. But anyhow, let's go ahead and head on down to the counter, and we'll get started making this dish. I think you're gonna enjoy it. It sounds like it's gonna be a lot of work, but it's not, trust me. Hold on for me just 1 second. Okay, we are down here on the counter, or actually at the stovetop and the counter. All you will need for this dish is I've got rice corn. It's just a side dish for it. But you will at least need a frying pan of some sort. I'm using cast iron. It does have to be something that, well, it doesn't have to be that, but it goes in the oven, because this is going to go in the oven, so we can get nice brown and melt the cheese that's going to go on top of it. Now, French onion chicken is literally like French onion soup with the cheeses on top, but with chicken involved in it. And it does have a few things added to it also. So the first thing we need to do is, I've been warming up my pan, but we're going to get a little hotter, and I've got 4 tablespoons of butter in here. And I'm just going to pop those in. We're going to get those melted, and then that way we can saute up some onions and some mushroom and some garlic. Alright, so got our butter melted, starting to bubble, means we got some heat. Now I've got 2 medium-sized onions. I know it's a lot of onions. If you don't like onions, this probably isn't the dish for you, but trust me, it's so full of flavor you won't be disappointed. But I got 2 medium onions, and I've got them thin sliced. See right there, I just, you know, not paper thin, but thin. We're gonna throw that in there, and to this, I've got 8 ounces, half a pound of sliced up, just regular old white mushrooms, white button mushrooms, and then I've got 3 cloves of minced garlic. I just use my garlic press to get that taken care of. I'm too lazy to actually mince it up with a knife. Call me lazy, but now we're going to let this cook for about 4 or 5 minutes. We're going to get the onions softened. We're going to get the mushrooms, you know, nice and softened and cooked. And then we can move on to the next step. Okay, while those are cooking, I've got, we can go ahead and prep our chicken up a little bit. I've got 3 teaspoons of vegetable oil. And what I'm going to do first is I'm going to take it and I'm just going to lightly drizzle it over my chicken. I've got 3 chicken breasts here that I pounded flat, put it in a Ziploc baggie, and used a meat mallet. And then I cut them in half, which gives me 6 pieces. This dish, and you can use less, use more, that's completely up to you. But I found that by flattening your chicken with a meat mallet, And make sure you use a Ziploc bag, that way you don't tear up the meat. It just makes it go a lot further, you know, as far as usage goes. Like I buy, I don't want bulk chicken, but you know, I'll buy a couple, 2-3 packages worth of, you know, about 10 pounds of chicken at a time, and I can make it last quite a long time. You know, by making this 6 pieces, flatten them out, it at least gives the illusion that they're big. So that way, you know, you're, you know, making it go further. You know, when chicken, you know, is $4 a pound, yeah, that can get expensive quick. So you find ways to make it work. So we've got our olive oil on our chicken. The next thing we're going to do, I've got about a teaspoon of Italian seasoning. And it's just regular old Italian seasoning with the oregano and all that in it. And I'm going to sprinkle that on there, on our chicken. Give that a good rub around. Flip it over, do the other side. All right. Then we're going to take a little bit of salt to taste. But I'm going to use about a 1/2 to 3/4 teaspoon, because salt, while it sits here, will tenderize that meat. So we'll get that on there, get that flipped over. And then the last thing we're going to put on here is pepper. If I can get it open. I'm telling you, as I get older, my body is just falling apart. Pepper. And like I said, salt and pepper as much as you guys like. You know, if you like a lot of salt, a lot of salt. A lot of pepper, a lot of pepper. I would recommend that putting a little bit of at least salt on there. Like I said, just because you want that to help season and tenderize the meat just a little bit of time that it's on here. Yeah, before we put it in the oven, put it in the skillet. Alright, there is that. So, now we just gotta wait on our vegetables to finish up, and we can start cooking something else. Okay, so we've got our onions softened, everything's become fragrant. I can smell the onions, I can smell the garlic, my stomach's growling, I'm so hungry. We have spent the entire day baking cookies. It has been non-stop action. We had so many orders come in for cookies, it's been unreal. And I'll make sure that we get some pictures or video of it before we send them out. You know, we got them going to different, you know, friends that have ordered, co-workers, just all kinds of people that we know. But we gotta get this out of here. Okay, so we got all that out of the pan, or at least a good majority of it. So the next thing we gotta put into the pan is our chicken. So we're gonna go ahead and take our chicken, and we're gonna set that in there. And this is the reason why, another reason why I cut my chicken up. I mean, not only does it go further, but to try to stick 3 big old honking pieces in here, it is just a headache and a hassle. I mean, we're going to try our hardest not to overcrowd, but it may happen a little bit. Get that in there. Now, we're going to cook this roughly about 4 minutes on each side. It doesn't necessarily have to be completely cooked through, because remember, we're going to stick it in the oven for a little bit, and that'll help the cooking process. We're in about 3 to 4 minutes, depending on how thick you kept your chicken. And then we'll flip it over to another 3 or 4 minutes, and then we'll move on. All right, hold on for me just 1 second. Okay, so we let our chicken cook 4 minutes on each side. So the next thing we need to do is get our chicken out of here. Sorry, I'm using the wobbler again. You know, I love this pan. I know it's a spinner and it wobbles a little, but I don't care. Say what you will. It's a great pan. So, now that we got the chicken done, now you're asking yourself, because I thought this a long time ago, why don't you do the chicken first? Well, I'm not sure. Other than the fact, I think now we have the flavor of the onions, the mushroom, the garlic, and the chicken. Italian, see, all that stuff is in the bottom of this pan. Because what we're going to do next is, we're going to put our vegetables back in. I know you're like, but Brian, you just took them out. And it's okay. To this, I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of flour. We're going to make a roux. And if you don't know what a roux is, it's basically, it's a roux. It's cooked flour So we're gonna cook this until the flour, like if you're making gumbo or something like that, a nice Creole dish, it's made with a roux. And roux in the beginning, you know, way back when, scared me. I was always afraid of burning the flour. So what you want to do is you want to keep it moving, right? You don't want to let it sit, you don't want to let it burn. But what this is going to do is when we pour our beef stock in here, it's going to help thicken it up, because by cooking the flour, we've killed the taste of the flour. But flour is a thickener, like cornstarch. So you want to put that in there, and that'll help thicken up our beef broth, which will give us not exactly a gravy, but a nice, dense, rich sauce. It'll bring out that flavor. So we've got that going, and that's how quick it was. Now, the longer you cook your flour, the darker it'll get, the darker your roux will be. Your liquid will be. So like if you're making a gumbo and you want it to be, you know, because they've got blonde, they've got, you know, all the way down to a super dark roux. But we've got that now. Now, here's the cool part. We're going to add 1.5 cups of beef broth to this, right? And I use better than bouillon. I don't buy stock, chicken stock. If you've been watching on my channel for any amount of time, I make my own. But when it comes to beef stock, I don't buy enough of the beef parts that you need to make stock, because you want stuff with a lot of marrow in it. That's the kind of like the liquidy part in the bone. Well, it's not liquidy, but it's not meat, and it's usually inside the bone. Oxtail is one that's really good for having bone marrow in it, to make a beef broth with. I just don't buy enough stuff like that. But we got our sauce in there. I went ahead and got all that lovely deliciousness off the bottom, and the flour's in there, so it's going to help thicken it up. The next thing I'm going to add to this, I've got about a tablespoon worth of fresh thyme, and I'm going to take half of that and I'm going to put it in here. The rest of it we're going to sprinkle on the top. This is also the point where I want to turn my oven on, 400 degrees. So we're going to get this going, give that thyme a chance to get in there and play for a minute. We're just going to let this simmer for a minute or two and thicken up, and then we're almost to home base, you know, ready to put it in the oven. Okay, so we've let her simmer here for a minute or two, and I don't know if you can see or not, but it's starting to thicken up. You know, we're not gravy consistency, but we're thickening up. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to turn that off, because we're done with it. See how it's still going? I love cast iron. There's a lot to be said for cast iron. So the next thing we need to do is put our chicken back in here, back on top. We're going to just put it on top of it, and we're going to leave some open spaces in there. That way, as we put it on, and see, I mean, I could actually have gotten more chicken in here, but we don't want to overcrowd the pan, and there's only 2 or 3 of us eating tonight. Even though there's 6 of us, you know, that actually live here, tonight it's just 2 or 3 of us. So we'll go ahead and get our chicken in here, and I'm covering it with the onions, you know, and all that's doing is just ensuring the top of it gets some of that flavor, you know, so it's not just sitting in there resting, you know. Get that on there. Okay, so the last thing we need to do before we stick it in the oven, go ahead and take that off that heat for a second, is I've got some grated cheese. So I've got 3 different cheeses here. I want to say the original recipe I think called for 4, possibly 5. And most of the time we just use mozzarella, because that's just what we have laying around. But tonight I've got mozzarella, parmesan, and provolone. I have all of this because I had them in the fridge. But you want to use French onion soup. Traditionally comes with, I want to say it's 5 white cheeses all together. But we've only got 3, so that's what we're using. And like I said, mozzarella is the most common one we have in our house. So mozzarella is usually the one that gets thrown on there. But what we're going to do is we're just going to take this, and it's all right, this is a good guesstimate here, about 8 ounces, a half a pound, or about 3 cups of mozzarella, 1 cup of Parmesan Reggiano, and that's grated, and then 1 cup of shredded provolone. Now with the provolone, because those of you who followed me, we're just gonna put this on top. The provolone, for those that have followed me for a while, know that I'm not a big fan of pre-sliced cheese. And it's weird because there's not really a reason for it other than they spray oil on it. It's a food grade oil on pre-shredded cheese to keep it from clumping together. Because if you've noticed with cheeses, if you buy a block of it, it will and you shred it, it has a tendency to stick together. Cheddar and Colby are the worst about that. They will in an instant try to get back together with each other and form a block again, so to speak. But for whatever reason, I got stuck in my head that I just don't like that oil on it, the anti-clumping agent. Now, to keep yours from, let's say you pre-shred your cheese and now you're not going to use it all at once, you could actually put a little bit of flour or cornstarch on it, and that will, I mean, it's just a little bit, like a pinch, and that will keep it from clumping back together. So we got our cheeses on there. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to take the rest of that thyme, that other half a tablespoon, and we're just going to sprinkle it on top. So what we're going to do is now is I'm going to go ahead and stick this in the oven and at 400 degrees. I don't know if I mentioned the temperature, but we've got our oven at 400 degrees. So I'm just going to stick this in the oven on the middle rack, and I'm going to let it go for about 15 minutes until all our cheese is melted, bubbly, and golden. And you should see the onion soup that we've created bubbling on the side, because that's what we've made. We basically just made a nice chicken with a French onion soup, and then covered it in cheese, just like you would have in a restaurant. You know, because French onion soup usually comes with cheeses on top, melted on top, and comes in a I can't think of the name of the container, but it's a really nice ceramic container. I love French onion soup. But anyhow, getting distracted. Oven, 15 minutes till we're bubbly, the liquids are bubbly, cheese is melted and golden brown on top. I'll see you here in just 1 second. All right, so meal's cooked. I pulled the chicken out of the oven and we let it sit for about 10 minutes. And if you're wondering why, I'll tell you. Because we don't want to melt our face off trying to eat it. All proteins you should let sit for, you know, about 5-10 minutes. I mean, it depends on what you're making, but I'm gonna say 10 minutes is a pretty good rule. But there is how we turned out, right? Looks fabulous. And when I pulled it out of the oven, the sauce, the French onion soup, was bubbling around the edges. Our cheese is melted, it's golden brown, it looks wonderful. That's what we were looking for, right? And our chicken, even though it was mostly done when we put it back in there, it wasn't completely done, but it is now. You know, we let it cook an additional 15 minutes. Should have just sent it on through the roof. So the next thing we need to do is just plate it up, really, and give it a good serve. So I think in the original video, the original recipe for this, I only went with 1 cup of the beef stock, and which is what I believe the original recipe called for, but we like to have the extra broth there, so that way we can put it over. Like tonight we're having this with rice. You can also have this with a potato. A fried potato would be good, or even a sliced up, put in the oven, roasted potatoes would be really good with this if you have the time to do so. You know, or you could have asparagus with this. Tonight we're having broccoli. All in all, this meal doesn't take but about 30-35 minutes to make for as fancy as it seems. Sarah, our daughter, would say, wow, Dad, that's a really fancy meal, but it also happens to be one of her favorites. So, you know, we're in good shape there. And I've got some French bread to hang out on the side with it with. And I'm going to take, well, no, I'm not, because I don't have one. Hold on for me 1 second.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that. I just needed to find something to grab some of this onion soup with because I want to put it on my rice. Just like such. All right. And there we are. I mean, a meal fit for a king in like 35 minutes. And all of it came from the stovetop. I cooked the rice on the stovetop. Well, the broccoli I did not cook on the stovetop. That's a kind of a lie there. But, and it's also something that I can't sit here and take a bite of. I actually have to cut it. I'll just grab the big knife I was using earlier. So we will cut this up. In fact, let me move back a little, maybe be able to see a little better. No, not really. That's all right. You can take my word for it. I'm going to cut this. And I can tell you from having this previously, you make this, your family is going to think you're just the end-all be-all. This is something you could serve a pretty good crowd. Like I said, we could have put more chicken in that pan. We just didn't because, like I said, there's only a couple of us eating tonight. You know, the whole gang is out doing their own thing. But all the same, would you like the first bite? It's there for you. All right, well, if you insist. That chicken, is tender as all get out. By using the meat mallet on it and then the salt added to it, beautiful. The fresh thyme is there. I mean, you can taste it. And if you've never had thyme before as a seasoning, especially fresh thyme, you'll crave it. It's the craziest thing ever. But it's just perfect with all the Italian seasoning, the onions, the garlic. All those truly come through in flavor. You just can't beat that with a stick, I'm here to tell you. That is good stuff. We make this fairly regular. And like I said, the first time you make it, the first time I made it, I was like, ugh. You know, it seemed like it was gonna be a challenge. It's really not hard to do. It's an easy dish, and it is something that will wow your friends, your neighbors, whoever you invite over for dinner, your family. You know, it's just going to be amazing. Give this a try. I highly recommend it. You won't be disappointed. And let me know if you do. You can throw me a comment down below. Holler at us on Facebook, Mr. Smith's Kitchen. It's a group. Anybody can join. There's no questions to ask, no limitations, no special anything. It's just a group. Bunch of people hanging out, having a good time. Or you can find me on Instagram. Either way, it's not like I hide it. My name is Brian Smith. Obviously, I introduced myself. I'm Brian. This, my kitchen. It's Mr. Smith's Kitchen. But anyhow, tomorrow we are going to do, for dessert, we're going to do rice pudding. I've never had rice pudding, much like last week when I had never had bread pudding, and even though it wasn't a traditional bread pudding, traditional is such a lucrative word. Anything can be a tradition. Let me touch on that real quick. The person that mentioned the recipe is an absolutely lovely person, but in her house, that was what her mom made growing up. That was their tradition. That makes it traditional in their household. Now, your family may do a dish a different way. That makes it traditional for your household. That's the beauty of tradition. You know, it can be a little different. You know, everything varies. Even with the potato candy, Lord have mercy, was there a bunch of variants. That was what was traditional in their households, and I think that's amazing to be able to learn that and be accepting of it. Anyhow, that being said, tomorrow, rice pudding. We're gonna give it a shot. I've never had it. I think it'll be amazing. Chris has had it a million times, and she thinks it's amazing. It's one of her favorite desserts, and why not? You know. So yeah, I think that's it. So till tomorrow, when we have rice pudding, I love you. I love you very much, and I mean that from the bottom of my heart. Tell somebody else that you love them and that you love them very much. It's gonna make them feel a whole lot better, and they may need to hear it. It's gonna make you feel better to tell them. I guarantee it. It's gonna swell your heart with pride and, you know, make you feel good. And if you make them some of this French onion chicken, invite them over for a meal, they're gonna know that you care, and it's gonna lead to hours of conversation, you know, which we need. Communication and conversation, we all could use some of. So, till tomorrow for dessert, I love you. I'll see you then. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.